KWT slaying.
Salama family, salama, how y'all doing today? Hope you're blessed and highly favored. So, I hope y'all caught the little, interview that Dante and I did today on Brother Berean. That was pretty good, I think. If you didn't check it out. So we're gonna go through some stuff. Now, one thing I want to say is, as I mentioned in other shows, it would really be good if you could go back and watch some of the historical and prophetic, really, but historical shows that we did about us being Jews and being in Portugal and Spain, because that's going to help you out understanding what's happening and what has been going on with us not really knowing what was going on, right? As I mentioned on Brother Berean's show, how many of us, before we even woke up, and let me ask you this question before I get started, family. How many of you, before you found out you were Israelite, asked the question, why does the world hate black folks? Why we're hated everywhere we go? What did we do? How many of you all asked that question? Because I know I did before I knew who we were. Just put a 1 if you asked yourself that question, or 2 if you didn't. A 1 if you asked yourself that question, or 2 if you didn't. See, all of us have. That tells you something was missing, right? And you didn't know why these things occurred, why you were treated so bad. You're like, what in the heck did I do? I'm just trying to live like you. I'm trying to take care of my family like you. But why are you hating on me? What's with all the racism? Because I'm black? Well, I look at these Indians over here and people from other countries who dark skinned, but they don't get hated like we are. Now we know why. But here's the thing. Now we know we're at war, right? We know that much. But we don't know the history, the whole story. We know about the Inquisition, right? But we don't understand what was really going on, right? We don't understand what was really going on. And so I'm going to try to help you out with that. I try to piece the puzzle together as much as I can. But we need to understand is there's a ton more research out there. And some of it is based upon what we already know, and you have to put the pieces together piece by piece. So let's start with scripture. Okay, everybody know this. Psalm 83. Keep not thou silence, O God, hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God, for lo, thy enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. Thank you for the gift, family. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. Here's the people. who are confederate against the Most High and against his people. The tabernacles of Edom and the Ishmaelites of Moab and the Hagarenes, Gebal, Ammon, Amalek, the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre. This is why they could keep it secret so long. Ashur also is joined with them. They have hope in the children of Lot, Selah. So all these nations had to be involved. The Most High goes on to say, do unto them as unto the Midianites, as unto Sisera, as to Jabin at the brook of Kishon, which perished at Endor. They became as dung for the earth. That's the end of Edom. That his role as a nation is going to be dung. Make their nobles like Oreb and like Zeb, yea, all the princes of Zebah and Ezamuna, who said, let us take to ourselves the houses of God in possession. Let's take them captives. Oh my God, make them like a wheel as the stubble before the wind, as the fire burneth a wood, and as the flame setteth the mountains on fire. So persecute them with thy tempest and make them afraid with thy storm. Fill their faces with shame that they may seek thy name, O Lord. Let them be confounded and troubled forever. Yea, let them be put to shame and perish, that men may know that thou, whose name alone is Yahuwah, art the most high over all the earth. So we see this conspiracy, we know about it. But how did it manifest in reality? What do we know about this conspiracy? See, unless you know who the people are, you don't know how the prophecies came together. Isaiah 14:13, for thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. Now, that's the king of Tyre, but many put this in reference to Satan. He says what? He's going to exalt his throne. He said he's going to exalt his throne above the stars of God. And he's going to sit upon the mount of the assembly. Who's the assembly? Right? Let me ask, well, we're going to get to it. We're going to get to it. I was going to ask you a question, fam. Well, let me ask you let me go on. Well, the question I was going to ask, family, who was supposed to rule? Let me ask you that question. Who was supposed to rule? Who was supposed to rule the earth? Who was supposed to rule the earth, family? Esau or Jacob? Israel is the assembly. Who was supposed to rule the earth? Israel. So we need to understand that Israel is a threat to Satan, right? Because Israel was prophesied to be kings and priests. So, well, let me do this right quick. Hold on one sec. All right. I got that. Okay, I think we ordered now. So who was supposed to rule? Israel. Okay, so let me share this scripture with you. I shared this today as well on Brother Berean's show. 1 Peter chapter 2, verses 5 through 12. Yea, also as lively stones are built up a spiritual house in holy priesthood to offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to Yah by Yeshua the Messiah. Wherefore also it is contained in the scripture, behold, I lay in Zion the chief cornerstone, elect, precious, and he that believeth on him shall not be confounded. Unto you therefore which believe he is precious, but unto them which be disobedient, the stone which the builders disallowed, the same is made the head of the corner. And a stone of stumbling and a rock of offense, even to them which stumble at the word, being disobedient, whereunto also they were appointed. But ye are a chosen generation. Who are we talking about here? Ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people, that ye should show forth the praise of him who hath called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Who are we talking about here? Is it the church made of Jew and Gentile, or are we talking to Israel? We know for a fact, okay, that the promises given to Israel at the Mount was to be a royal priesthood, a holy nation. And I'm going to prove right here is talking to Israel as well, which in time past were not a people, but are now the people of God, which had not obtained mercy, but now have obtained mercy. Now, the scripture tells us that Israel was nothing. Among the nations, she was nothing. She was the smallest amongst the nations. She was like a person in dung who the Most High took up and restored. Okay. Verse 11, dearly beloved, I beseech you as strangers and pilgrims, abstain from fleshly lusts which war against the soul, having your conversation or lifestyle honest among the Gentiles. So if we're having our lifestyle be an example to the Gentiles, then contextually speaking, we're talking to who? Israel. We're not talking to the church that they call the church, made up of Jew and Gentile, because contextually wise, what? Our lifestyle must be what? An example to the Gentiles. Why? Because the oracles of God was given to who? The Jews, the Israelites. That whereas they speak against you as evildoers, they may by your good works, which they shall behold, glorify God in the day of visitation. So they speak evil of you, Israel, but they're going to glorify God. They took your inheritance, but it's going to be restored. But let me continue. I'm going to show you how deep this thing goes. Because here's the thing. You cannot understand the Bible unless you know who the people are. You cannot understand the prophecies unless you know who the people are. You cannot understand why all these things happen to us and not the quote unquote church, Jew and Gentile. It only happens to black people. It only happens to Negroes. Why? Because of the curses. But let me continue. The definition of a usurper: a person who takes a possession of power or importance illegally or by force. So, family, Israel was meant to be what? Kings and priests, right? To show the nations who Yah is, to be an example who? To the Gentiles. The royal house of God was supposed to be an example to the people who did not know God, the people who were without hope in the world. The mystery that Gentiles could be part of the family of God. That does not mean replace the tribes. The tribes were never replaced. So who usurped the priesthood? Who usurped this position of royalty amongst the nations? Who was it? Let's get into it. Let's get into it. You see this priesthood? Do you know who they are? This is called the Roman Catholic Church. This is called, and that's correct, Edom. And that's why I stated that, you know, if you haven't gone through previous videos, you won't understand why we consider Rome to be Edom. Now, some people are going to say, well, Edom was Jacob's brother. Esau was Jacob's brother, and Esau was a black man. That may be true. And I believe that some of the offspring of Esau is still black. I believe, this is just my opinion, that the Yemenite Jews, some of them, not all, that some of the Yemenite Jews are Esau. That's my opinion. Why? Because they used to be called Temanites. Who was Teman? Teman was the son of Esau. I'm just saying, go do your research. So we have a priesthood that exists, that rules the world. It still does today, even though you don't know it. Let me ask you, how many of you know that every single president has gone to Rome after their inauguration? Like a year or two after, they have to go to Rome. They dress in black. Him and his wife, they have to go to Rome and meet the Pope. Why? Because that's the rulership. That's the rulership. See, this is the priesthood that has stolen the people who were to direct you to Yeshua. But what are they directing you to? They're directing you to another Christ, a false Christ, not the Christ of the Bible. Now, you're going to see why all of this lines up. All of this lines up. Because these are the same people who were behind our captivity. Esau. Remember, for you all who follow this ministry, Zepho what? Conquered Rome. Zepho conquered Rome. Zepho was a son of Esau. But guess what? One other thing they don't tell you, unless you do your research, do you not know that many of the Romans and the Roman leaders in the beginning were people of color, black? You don't see that today, but they were black. Bushy hair. But let's continue. Let's continue. So we talk about the rulership, that took over our priesthood, that at least tried to, the imitators, right? The false hierarchy, the false rulership, the false priests. See, the priests were always meant to be what? Israelites, Levites, the kings. Who are these kings? See, if you understand history, all of these European kings that are in power were subject to Rome, which is why we're going to get into this. What you're dealing with is a continuation of an old war. It's never ended. It's the continuation of a war. Now, I want to show you. So these are what they call the Latino Jews. See how white they are? Judeo-Spanish, also known as Latino, mixes 16th century Spanish, Hebrew, Turkish, and other languages. Can I rephrase that? Hebrew with Yiddish and other languages. Yiddish brew. They tell you these are the Latino Jews. That's what they tell you. You're supposed to accept it and move on. But when you start digging in, you start looking, you find out, well, who are the people in Cape Verde where the Latino Jews live? Now, I'm not saying you don't have no lighter colored people, but we got to get into history first. We're going to get into history and what the words mean. See, this is a Latino of African descent, which is in Africa, right? It's an island off of Africa, but they're going to tell you the picture I showed you earlier are Latinos. And I got a point in all this. I'm going there. I just want you to know what the original people look like in Cape Verde, where the Latinos are. All right. Why? I'm gonna bring you there. So let me show you the name of this book before I continue. Well, here it is. You can see it right here. I'm gonna put these links in the description after the show. It's called The Islamic Slave Revolts of Bahia, Brazil. It says, although slavery and the trade of slaves in Africa existed hundreds of years before the Europeans came, Yet the arrival of Portuguese explorers to the west coast of Africa in the 1400s was a major new development in the intensity, sources, destination, and uses to which African slaves would undergo. Initially, the Portuguese captured slaves from the northwestern coast of Africa and shipped them to Europe for primarily domestic use. The first of these raids took place in 1441 when 2 Portuguese vessels landed at Rio de Oro and captured several Idzagan Berbers. These slaves were used to supply strategic information about Africa and were utilized as domestic servants in Lisbon. That's in Portugal. That next year, the Portuguese contrived to elevate the raids of the west coast of Africa to the status of a religious crusade. By doing so, they would legitimize the war and attract badly needed troops. Prior to this, Portuguese men were reluctant to risk the arduous trip along the coast of West Africa, which could have ended in some of them being captured and enslaved by Muslims. For this reason, in 1442, the church authorities framed the edict called Ilias Qui, which promised all those who would join the slave raiding party spiritual reward and eternal salvation. So Roman Catholicism promised them if they go and fight, right, and subjugate these people, they will get spiritual and eternal salvation. Hence, the Christian religion was brought into the equation of slaving in Africa and would remain a part of it to the very end. See, this is why all of this occurred in the Americas as well. This is why Eurocentric Christianity persecutes you today, because they're still under Rome. This is not surprising given the depiction that Hellenistic Christianity and European Judaism gave to Africans in the myth concerning the curse of Ham. This myth was generated into the literature of Europeans by way of the Babylonian Talmud, and it holds that the descendants of Ham were cursed by being black. In addition to this, the myth held that Africans were natural thieves, fornicators, habitual liars, and that they were destined by providence to be slaves. This myth became the key element behind the jurisdiction for the enslavement of African people by the Portuguese Christians during the 4th and 18th centuries. Coupled with these religious justifications and the Portuguese insatiable need for labor, it created the demand for African bodies and souls. Saunders points out that this trend increased as the years passed and as Portugal began to need an increased labor force for its sugar plantations in the New World, he said. In the New World, listen to that. In the New World, he said. 10 years later, the Portuguese sought confirmation that they could enslave infidels seized in a crusade. The Pope responded with the Dum Diversas, which allowed them to conquer and reduce to perpetual slavery all Saracens and pagans and other infidels and enemies of Christ. Okay, so remember, all Saracens, pagans, Saracens are Muslims, pagans, and other infidels and enemies of Christ. They considered the Jews to be enemies of Christ. We read that in all the other historical books that we read, right? They wanted to convert us to what? Roman Catholicism. Thus, the Catholic Church declared a holy war. Wait, what? What did they do? Thus, the Catholic Church declared a holy war to justify the capture and supplying of African slaves to meet the needs of labor demand in sugar plantations of the New World. It is ironic that the slaves would later utilize the same tactic in trying to win their freedom from the most vociferous of Christian fundamentalists. Consequently, with the introduction of sugar production in the New World, there materialized an increased demand for a constant cheap labor force. Sugar production first began in Southeast Asia and gradually moved westward. By the 14th century, the island of Cyprus in the Mediterranean became the major producer and supplier of sugar to Europe. The Muslims introduced sugar production to the Iberian Peninsula in early 14th century. What Muslims? The Moors, who owned and conquered Spain and Portugal. However, by the 15th century, the Portuguese were making sugar throughout Europe, In 1490, the Portuguese settled in the island of Sao Tome off the coast of Angola. We saw all the other historical documents that talk about them sending who? Black Jewish slaves to the island of Sao Tome, which became a major supplier of sugar for Portugal. I've showed you in my other video, Jews in Europe, how even in the UNESCO document, we got some other UNESCO documents that the Jews, right? Well, back in the UNESCO document, they call them African slaves sent to Sao Tome. Okay. But we know from the other historical documents that they were Black Jews. The labor forces for this enterprise were African slaves taken from Angola, Senegambia, and the Bight of Benin. In 1554, there were more than 150 to 300 slaves working these sugar plantations. Thus, prior to European settlements in the New World, there had already been extensive utilization of African slaves in the many sugar plantations in Portugal and in the islands off the coast of Africa. And I'm gonna be ending soon. You can read the rest of this document, and I'll post the link. During the years between 1530 to 1540, sugar production became very intensified in Brazil, making it the major source of sugar from the New World. These sugar plantations were mainly located in the northeast area of Brazil in Pernambuco and Bahia. And thus sugar became the main product which the Portuguese colonies in Brazil were responsible for producing. This meant an increased demand for labor, which accelerated the Atlantic slave trade to limits which had never been reached prior to this time. First, it was the Christianized blacks from Portugal and Spain who made up the first African ship to Bahia. Let me rephrase that. First, it was the Christianized blacks from Portugal and Spain who made up the first African ship to Bahia. Wait, let me rephrase that since we have other historical documents that tell us something similar. First, it was the converted Black Jews from Portugal and Spain who made up the first African ship to Bahia, because we know they converted or forced conversions of the Black Jews to Roman Catholicism. Some equate what we call Christianity with Roman Catholicism. Let me rephrase that. Roman Catholicism is modern Christianity. Luther, who was a Protestant, never really got rid of the authority of Rome. But that's for another discussion. All right, so these blacks were called what? Latinos, or let me rephrase that. These Black Jews were called Latinos or Latinized blacks. Latinos means black. Wait. I thought the first picture, wait, let me go back. Because it says, am I reading this wrong? It says what? These blacks were called Latinos or Latinized blacks. Is that not what it says? But didn't they tell me? They told me that these are the Latinos. Is that not what they said? Did they not say these? Does this not say these are the Latinos, the Latino Jews? Judeo-Spanish is a language of Hispanic stock spoken and written by Jews of Spanish origin. These are supposed to be the Latino Jews, but back to where we were. These blacks were called Latinos or Latinized blacks. Latino means black. How many times we got to tell y'all? Because we do our homework. See, this is why, you know, when we were on Brother Berean's show, I'm like, dude, you trying to teach me prophecy. You don't even know where to begin. He tried to hook me up in the 1,000-year reign. I'm like, we not there yet. When you had me mention that, I ain't never said all this happened during the 1,000-year reign, but I digress. I digress. Point being here, Latino means black. Where am I going with this, family? Where am I going with this? So this is another article about Jews in Cape Verde. Other references to Portuguese or Iberian Jews sometimes use the term what Latino. Wait. I thought we just saw that the word Latino means black. I thought we just saw the word Latino means black, is Latinized for black. Other references to Portuguese or Iberian Jews sometimes use the term Latino to note this social group, which constituted a portion of early migrants to the Cape Verde Islands. Some references use this term for the people and language of the 16th and 17th century Sephardic Jews from the Iberian Peninsula. The term Latinos could also refer to what? Baptized African slaves. He says could refer. But we just read where Latino means black. The term Latinos could also refer to baptized African slaves. Where at? In Cape Verde. In either case, the reference was often racist and derogatory and implied a lying, wandering, sneaky, thieving group, which was particularly untrustworthy. In certain social contexts, it could be used affectionately to mean a scamp. So we got the Latino. Latino means black. The Jews are called black Jews. We got a history of Jews going to Sao Tome, going to the islands, right? We saw that, going to Cape Verde as slaves. But they want to confuse the issue and try to make you think we're talking about different groups of people. But let's continue. I'm going to put these links in the description. So ecclesiastical authority. Ecclesiastical authority is the authority which the church has been given by Jesus Christ to be exercised in his name in carrying out the mission entrusted to it. In the basis in the nature of the church, in the language of Vatican II, potestas sacra means the power which Jesus Christ has given the church to exercise in his name. In the discharge of ministries he has established in his church in such a way that they have to be carried out by special authorities. All right, so this is why there's always an overemphasis on church. Why? Because there's an ecclesiastical authority which the church has been given. What church? We're talking about really Roman Catholicism, because according to them, they have the keys of Peter. Okay, so this is authority to be exercised in the name and carrying out the mission entrusted to it. So according to modern Eurocentric ideology, the church, which is made of Jew and Gentile, has this ecclesiastical authority. But they never make the distinction between the Roman Catholic Church, which also has an ecclesiastical authority. But I'm going somewhere with this. So this is a book. You've seen it before. It's called The History of Jews, the Jews of Spain and Portugal. So the history, the Jews of Spain and Portugal, from the earliest time to their final expulsion from those kingdoms and their subsequent dispersion, with complete translations of all the laws made respecting them during their long establishment in where? The Iberian Peninsula. All right, so we've done some studies on that, how our people were in Spain and Portugal. They were kicked out, sent to Sao Tome. Some went into the Iberian Peninsula, along with the Moors when Spain and Portugal were taken over, right? And until later on when they were pushed out of the Iberian Peninsula. So So I'm going to show you what's going on here, what this war is really about. Okay, so this is from the book I just showed you. It states, right down here, I'm not going to read all of it. It says, this shows that the bishops of that synod feared that the Hebrew benediction will be held in higher estimation than that of the Catholic Church, and that the inhabitants, from the example of the Jews, had learned to praise and thank the omnipotent Creator, who had bountifully supplied their wants. So there's another book I was reading. I got to find it. I have the links. But it talks about how the people wanted to have the Jews bless their fields. They wanted the Jews to bless their fields because they were God's people. So not until later on, when what they call Christianity came, right, did they start going to the bishops of Rome to bless their fields. Because then Roman Catholicism taught that the Jews were abandoned by their God. So as it states here, right, this shows that the bishops of that synod feared that the Hebrew benediction would be held in higher estimation than that of the Catholic Church. We have an ecclesiastical authority problem going on here. We have an ecclesiastical authority problem going on here. Why? Because the people wanted the benediction from the Hebrews. They did not want the benediction from Rome or from the bishops of Rome. We have a power problem here. We have a usurpation going on. A priesthood taken from a people who went into slavery, given to Gentiles, which is why you had the Nicene Council, managed and run by Gentiles, ignoring the Jerusalem Council, which the apostles had. There was a usurpation. Now, some people say, well, everybody who was at Nicaea wasn't white. No, they weren't. But they were from Roman provinces. Go prove me wrong. They were from Roman provinces, every single one of them. So the next book I'm looking at is called, it's a UNESCO book, General History of Africa, abridged edition 5, Africa from the 16th to 18th century, editor B.A. Ogat. As I mentioned, I'll put the links in. So it says here, Africans also settled along parts of the Malabar coast during the 17th and 18th centuries. These were Black Jews, descendants of who? African slaves who had left Cochin and Kerala in the southern India to come and settle on that coast. Most became domestics and intermarried with local inhabitants and other Jews. The Portuguese were responsible for settling African slaves along parts of the Malabar coast, especially around Goa, which became one of his headquarters in the 17th century. So we need to understand what's going on here with this slave trade. We need to understand what's going on with this slave trade, why it was so important and why all of these nations were involved, why Portugal and Spain are involved. We've been at war since 70 AD. These people have been hunting us since 70 AD, chasing us, enslaving us, making alliances with the Arabs. Why do you think the Arabs wanted to convert you to Islam? You either converted to Islam or you converted to Roman Catholicism. Why? So that the Jews cannot have the authority. Not only did Catholicism usurp the priesthood, or tried to, the Muslims tried to usurp the priesthood. Because the people were enslaved and spread amongst the nations as slaves, and Africa was colonized, Israel could not fulfill its role. Here's another book, Slave Voyages, the Transatlantic Trade in Enslaved Africans, Hilary McDonald Beckles, University of the West Indies. This is another UNESCO book. The Europeans, dwelling on the African peoples' different physical appearance and unfamiliar cultural characteristics, concluded that they were an inferior race of outsiders and deserved ill treatment. By virtue of their being non-European, it was thought that the Black African peoples could be legitimately enslaved. An idea that went with the Europeans' belief that in trading in Africa, they were actually also discovering and, where possible, claiming new lands and their inhabitants. Such views, articulated at the time by leading European theologians, philosophers, and scientists, were shared by the Catholic Church, which supported the ill treatment meted out to the African communities by sanctioning both European wars of conquest and the transatlantic slave trade itself. What did we see earlier, family? It was a what? Holy war. Against who? Against the Jews, against the Africans, against the Saracens. What do we see here? European wars of what? Conquest and the slave trade. What happens when you at war? You take people as slaves. The Vatican pronounced that the enslavement of Black Africans was allowed under the canon law of just war, because such peoples were pagans and should therefore be converted to Christianity if necessary by force. In this way, papal policy at the time supported the commercial activities of the European slave traders. Nevertheless, kidnapping as a means of gaining slaves was both time-consuming and expensive, and the European traders preferred to purchase slaves wherever possible. However, this too had complications, since political resistance on the part of local communities had to be addressed. This was overcome as the African rulers concerned, who had initially opposed the Portuguese, gradually began to see the benefits that the trade could bring them, since they could use it to dispose of unwanted prisoners of war, criminals, kinless persons in exchange for European goods. Though this gradual growth in cooperation on the part of the African rulers undoubtedly contributed to growth in the trade, the principal development leading to its expansion was the development of sugar plantations in the Madeiras, Cape Verde, Sao Tome. Wait, I thought the Latino Jews were in Cape Verde, but they're telling me these are Africans. Cape Verde, Sao Tome, and the Canaries in the middle of the 15th century. What? Here we go again. Sugar and slavery developed together. Of the 130,000 slaves exported from West Africa between 1451 and 1550, 90% were sent to these islands and only 10% to the New World. By the end of the century, the Portuguese had extended their trading network along the coast in Dahomey and Togo, with Cape Verde becoming a major center of the slave trade. Who lived in Cape Verde? Who was sent to Cape Verde? Latino Jews. What does Latino mean? Black. So we're talking about the Black Jews that I already showed you lived out there, that the Portuguese were enslaving. But take note of this here, family. Take note. It says we're sent to these islands and only 10% went to the New World. Why do I keep emphasizing the New World? I'm trying to get you to understand what's been going on and what's happening. I'm getting there. I'm sure some of you all getting the picture already. Didn't I tell you about a holy war? The Crusades were a series of religious wars initiated, supported, and sometimes directed by the Latin Church let's say Rome, Catholicism, in the medieval period. The term refers especially to the Eastern Mediterranean campaigns in the period between 1096 and 1271 that had the objective of recovering the Holy Land from Islamic rule. The term has also been applied to other church-sanctioned campaigns. Note that. Other church-sanctioned campaigns fought to combat paganism and heresy. What did we see in the other studies? That Rome, Spain, Portugal considered the black Jews to be heretics. Why? Because they weren't under Roman Catholicism. They weren't baptized as Christians. So that's why all of the Inquisition happened. But let me continue. To resolve conflict among rival Roman Catholic groups or to gain political and territorial advantage. The difference between these campaigns and other Christian religious conflicts was that they were considered a penitential exercise that brought forgiveness of sins declared by the church. See, the church has took authority. They believe they have authority from Christ. They think they're gods, right? These are the false prophets. These are the false Christs. These are the antichrist, for there are many antichrists. Historians contest the definition of the term crusade. Some restrict it to only on pilgrimages to Jerusalem. Others include all Catholic military campaigns with a promise of spiritual benefit, all Catholic holy wars, or those with a characteristic of religious fervor. What you all don't understand is that the Inquisition was a holy war. The Crusades was a holy war. They emphasize the Crusades only of the Muslims, but they don't emphasize those other campaigns. They don't emphasize those other campaigns, those other wars. What other wars? Well, we see in the historical documents the war against the Jews. We see in those other documents the war against the black Jews. So the question gonna be, well, why did they fight over Jerusalem if you don't believe Jerusalem is, or modern Jerusalem is the real land of Israel, or the real Jerusalem? Because I believe just as you have a fake priesthood, you have fake Jews, you have a fake land, and you're going to have a fake temple. I'm getting there. I'm telling you. But let's continue. So this is about the Reconquista. Let me show you what the Reconquista is. The Reconquista, Spanish and Portuguese for reconquest, was a period in the history of the Iberian Peninsula. You got to go back to the old studies, the old historical stuff, and talk and look at what happened in the Iberian Peninsula and who was there. It was the black Jews along with the Moors. You got to go look at the old history. But anyway, the Iberian Peninsula of about 780 years between the Umayyad conquest of Hispania, which is Spain, in 711, the expansion of the Christian kingdom throughout Spain, and the fall of the Nasrid kingdom of Granada. So you got to go look at this whole history about the Moors and how they took over from the Visigoths and all of this stuff, right? And how the Jews ended up ruling, right, their own area along with the Moors. Now, here's the thing. What they don't tell you, some of the Moors were Israelites, not all of them. Some of the Israelites had converted to Islam, right? And some of those Moors were Israelites. So just want to let you know that. But let's continue. So we got the Reconquista, right? So it says the Crusades, which started late in the 11th century, bred the religious ideology of a Christian reconquest, confronted at that time with a similarly staunch Muslim jihad ideology in Al-Andalus by the Almoravids, and to an even greater degree by the Almohads. In fact, previous documents by the 10th and 11th centuries are mute on any idea of reconquest. Accounts of Muslim-Christian hostility came into being to support that idea, most notably the Chanson de Roland, a fictitious 11th century French version of the Battle of the Roncesvalles Pass, dealing with the Iberian Saracens, Moors. And remember, I told you, some of the Saracens, some of the Moors were Israelites. Moors just mean black. And there's such a thing as black Moorish Jews or Moroccan Jews. And I got the evidence for that, but not in this study. And taught as historical fact in the French educational system since 1880. So here you can see that there was a crusade. Now, remember, the Crusades weren't just about Jerusalem, and the Crusades weren't just against people in the Levant. The Crusades were those other campaigns. The Crusades were those other campaigns, holy wars. This is what you're under, Israel. This is what you're dealing with. This is why everywhere you go, people hate you, because you're persona non grata. You're persona non grata. In 711, North African Berber soldiers with some Arabs commanded by Tariq ibn Zayed crossed the Strait of Gibraltar, engaging a Visigothic force led by King Roderick at the Battle of Guadalete, in a monument of serious infighting and division across the Visigothic kingdom of Spain. So this is talking about when the Visigoths controlled Spain, the Moors came in and took it. And there was already Jews living there. But they were being persecuted as well, but not as bad as they were once it became under quote unquote Christian control. So after Roderick's defeat, the Umayyad governor of, I'm going to just say Musa, joined Tariq, directing a campaign against different towns and strongholds in Spain. Some like Merida, Cordova, Zaragoza were taken, but many agreed to a treaty in exchange for maintaining autonomy in the Theodemir's dominion. The invading Islamic armies did not exceed 60,000 men. So you have to go read up about this. Okay. You have to read about how Roderick, he had I forgot the position of the guy, but I'm going to call him a duke for all purposes. They had another name for him, I'm sure. But there was another guy who ruled the province under Roderick. And Roderick liked his sister. And so the guy sent his sister there to Spain under Roderick to learn, hint, hint, to learn the ways of the court. Well, Roderick took advantage of her, okay, which is what made it easier for the Moors to invade, because this particular guy, I can't remember his name, he worked with the Moors to invade because of what they did to his, I'm sorry, not his sister, but his daughter. I believe it was his daughter. And so, you got to understand what's going on here, family. Look, because we don't know our history. We don't know we didn't know who we were. So we didn't know this applied to us. We didn't know why the world is against us, why everything is geared and structured against us, why the system was built to keep us down, because we were meant to be perpetual slaves and our heritage was stolen. Now, you got to understand that the Ish people, even though they don't know it, the Ish are a part of the Roman program. They are a part of the Crusades. They don't know it because of over the generations. But I'm going to show you something. I'm going to show you, but you got to be able to see between the lines on things that's happening and why they're happening. So let's continue. So this is the continuation on the Reconquista. In the High Middle Ages, the fight against the Moors in the Iberian Peninsula became linked to the fight of the whole of Christendom. It only later underwent a significant shift in meaning toward a religiously justified war of liberation. The papacy and the influential abbey of Cluny in Burgundy not only justified the acts of war, but actively encouraged Christian knights to seek armed confrontation with Moorish infidels instead of with each other. Now, like I said, you got to understand, Moors weren't just Muslim. They were Israelites by heritage who were converted to Islam. They were inclusive in it. The military orders, such as the Order of Santiago Montesa, Order of Calatrava, and the Knights Templars, were founded or called to fight in Spain. The popes called the Knights of Europe to join the effort to destroy the Muslim states of the peninsula after the so-called disaster of Alarcos, French, Navarrese, Castilian. Portuguese and Aragonese armies united against the Muslim forces in the massive battle of Las Navas de Tolosa. The large territories awarded to military orders and nobles were the origin of the latifundia in today's Andalusia and Extremadura in Spain and El Tarjo in Portugal. I tried, family. I tried with the words. I think I did all right there, maybe. But note that who were the Crusade Knights? They were the Knights Templars. See, it's all coming around. Who are the Knights Templars? This is the army of Rome. This is the army of Rome. You got to put the pieces together. Now, Crusades and Defamations, a history of Catholic anti-Semitism. Robert Michael. This is just the abstract. During the Crusades, traditional Catholic hostility toward Jews became radicalized. When? During the Crusades, with the Jews coming more and more to represent an alien enemy residing in the heart of Christendom. A despised minority of Christendom's greatest sinners, scattered and unarmed, barely protected by the era's most powerful authorities, the Jews easily fell prey to Catholic crusaders. The Jewish communities hardest hit by crusader attacks, Worms, Mainz, and Cologne, were the greatest Western European centers of Jewish intellectual and cultural vitality. Some crusaders put it bluntly: either the Jews must convert to our belief or they will be totally exterminated. They and their children down to the last baby at the breast. But if the Crusaders had wanted simply to convert Jews, surely Jewish children would have been saved and raised as Catholics. This was seldom done. The Jews' reputation as stubborn, stiff-necked reprobates led many Crusaders to believe that the Jews could easily ward off the oceans of baptismal water required for a real conversion. With authentic conversion a lost cause, all the Jewish enemies of Christ might as well be killed. Crusader assaults were territorially widespread, religiously motivated, savage, murderous, and characterized by communal Jewish martyrdom and an ambivalent attitude on the part of secular and religious authorities. So I'm going to say this for all you people who going to come in late, who only going to catch this one show, you UA people who don't have no foundation. You got to go back and look at the other shows, the other teachings. You got to go look at the shows dealing with Jews in Europe. You're not going to understand that we're dealing with black Jews here, even though I showed you we're dealing with black Jews from Portugal, going to Cape Verde, going to Sao Tome. But we do all the work for you, but y'all think we just pulling legs, but okay. So we need to understand that there was a crusade, not just against the Muslims, but against the Jews, the black Jews from Spain, from Portugal. You think I'm lying? Go check the evidence. Go check the other shows. That's why I hate when UA come and they think they're going to defeat me. And I'm like, dude, I've been studying this stuff for years now, at the very least months. I like G-Con going to come and ask me about prophecy, trying to tie me to the 1,000-year reign. And I'm like, dude, you don't even understand what we teach. I'm like, you do better. At least go and watch our videos first. But I digress. Let's continue. I'm trying to show you the conspiracy, family, and the war that we were in. We've been in this war for a long time. Now you understand why and what's going on. Your heritage has been stolen. Your identity has been stolen. Your priesthood has been stolen. Knights Templar. The poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon, also known as the Order of Solomon's Temple. The Knights Templar, or simply the Templars, were a Catholic military order founded in 1119, headquartered on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem through 1128, when they went to meet the Pope Honorius II. They were recognized in 1139 by the papal bull Omne Datum Optimum. The order was active until 1312, when it was perpetually suppressed by Pope Clement V by the bull Vox in Excelsior. The Templars became a favorite charity throughout Christendom and grew rapidly in membership and power. They were prominent in Christian finance. Note that, okay? Templar Knights, in their distinctive white mantles with a red cross, were amongst the most skilled fighting units of the Crusades. Who were the Crusades against? Jews as well as Muslims. Non-combatant members of the order, who made up as much as 90% of their members, managed a large economic infrastructure throughout Christendom, developing innovative financial techniques that were an early form of banking, building its own network of nearly 1,000 commanderies and fortifications across Europe and the Holy Land, and arguably forming the world's first multinational corporation. Who was the first multinational corporation? The Knights Templars. Who are the bankers today? They're all Knights Templars, Crusaders, Freemasons. The Templars were closely tied to the Crusades. When the Holy Land was lost, support for the order faded. Rumors about the Templars' secret initiation ceremony created distrust, and King Philip IV of France, deeply in debt to the order, took advantage of this distrust to destroy them and erase his debt. In 1307, he had many of the order's members in France arrested, tortured into giving false confessions, and burned at the stake. Pope Clement V disbanded the order in 1312 under the pressure from King Philip. The abrupt reduction in power of a significant group in European society gave rise to speculation, legend, and legacy throughout the ages. The military order of Christ considered itself the successors to the former knights. Who's the military order of Christ? Considered itself the successors of the former Knights Templars, as it was reconstituted in Portugal after the Templars were abolished. The Order of Christ was founded in 1319 with the protection of the Portuguese king Denis, who refused to pursue and persecute the former knights, as had occurred in most of the other sovereign states. Under the political influence of the Catholic Church, Denis of Portugal revived the Templars of Tomar as the Order of Christ, largely for their aid during the Reconquista and in the reconstruction of Portugal after the wars. Denis negotiated with Clement's successor for recognition of the new order and its right to inherit the Templar assets and property. This was granted in a papal bull. Once again, family, what? Recognition of what? The new order. What is that? The New World Order. What is most of the founding fathers of America? What are they? What were they? Freemasons. Who are Freemasons? Knights Templars, or at least Knights Templars are Freemasons. All of these people are Roman. They wear a mask. I know I might get in trouble for this, but I'm like, it is what it is. The Most High protect me. You know what I'm saying? I mean, because we all in some stuff. Pray for you, boy. I tell you, because, you know, when you expose the devil. All right, so Freemasonry. Freemasonry has incorporated the symbols and rituals of several medieval military orders in a number of Masonic bodies since the 18th century at least. This can be seen in the Red Cross of Constantine, inspired by the military Constantinian order, the Order of Malta, inspired by the Knights Hospitaller, and the Order of the Temple, inspired by the Knights Templar. The Orders of Malta and the Temple feature prominent in New York Rite. One theory of the origin of Freemasonry claims direct descent from the historical Knights Templars through its final 14th century members who allegedly took refuge in Scotland and aided Robert the Bruce in the victory at Bannockburn. This theory is usually rejected by both Masonic authorities and historians due to the lack of evidence. Anyway, Knights Templars are Freemasons. Knights Templars are Freemasons. Knights Templars were Crusaders. Crusaders were at war against Islam and Jews. This is what's been happening. This is why you had the Inquisition, which never ended. This is why we're under a system that we can never climb out of. We are still held captive. Medieval bankers. Regarded as a safe place by locals, Templar communities or convents became repositories for cash, jewels, and important documents. The order had their own cash reserves, which were from as early as 1130 CE, put to good use in the form of interest-gaining loans. The Templars even permitted people to deposit money in one convent, and provided they could show a suitable letter transfer and then withdraw equivalent money from a different convent. In another early banking service, people could hold that today would be called a current account with the Templars, paying in regular deposits and arranging for the Templars to pay out on behalf of the account holder fixed sums to whoever was nominated. By the 13th century CE, the Templars had become such proficient and trusted bankers that the kings of France and other nobles kept their treasuries with the order. Kings and nobles were embarked on crusades to the Holy Land in order to pay their armies on the spot and meet supply needs, often forwarded large cash sums to the Templars, which could be withdrawn later in the Levant. The Templars even lent money to rulers and thus became an important element in the increasingly sophisticated financial structure of late medieval Europe. Who control the banks today? I know what they tell you. They tell you it's the Ish. But it's the Knights Templars. All of these people are wrong. This whole system is Roman. This war is the continuation of the Crusades. It is a holy war that never ended. Organization and recruitment. Recruits came from all over Western Europe. Although France was the largest single source, they were motivated by a sense of religious duty to defend Christians everywhere, but especially the Holy Land and its sacred sites, as a penance for sins committed, as a means to guarantee entry into heaven, or more earthly reasons such as a search for adventure, personal gain, social promotion, or simply a regular income and decent meals. Recruits had to be free men of legitimate birth, and if they wished to become knights, they had from the 13th century CE to be of knightly descent. Although rare, a married man could join provided his spouse agreed. Many recruits were expected to make a significant donation on entering the order, and as debts were a no-no, the financial status of a recruit was certainly a consideration. Although some minors did join the order, sent by their parents, of course, in the hope of a useful military training for a younger son who would not inherit the family estate. Most new recruits to the Templars were in their mid-20s. Sometimes recruits came late in life. An example is the great English knight Sir William Marshall, who, like many nobles, joined the order just before his death, left them money in his will, and so was buried in the Temple Church, London, where his effigy may still be seen today. How come they don't talk about the Knights Templars today? How come they don't talk about the Crusades today? I'm just asking. All right, so listen to this. There were two ranks within the order, knights and sergeants, with the latter group including non-military personnel and laymen. Most recruits were for the second group. Indeed, the number of knights across the order was surprisingly few. There were perhaps only a few hundred full brother Templar knights at any one time, sometimes rising to 500 knights in times of intense warfare. These knights would have been greatly outnumbered by other soldiers used by the order, such as infantry. The sergeants or recruits from vassal lands and mercenaries, especially archers, as well as squires, baggage bearers, and other non-combatants. Other members of the order included priests, craftsmen, laborers, servants, and even some women who were members of affiliated nunneries, which is a secret society we're talking about. This is Freemasonry. This is the Knights Templar. It's the continuation of the Order of the Knights. The order was led by the Grand Master, who stood at the top of a pyramid of power. Can I read that again, family? The order was led by the Grand Master, who stood at the top of a pyramid of power. Convents were grouped into geographical regions known as priories. In troubled zones like the Levant, many convents were in castles, while elsewhere they were established to control areas of land the order owned. Each convent was managed by a preceptor or commander and reported to the head of the priory in which his convent was situated. What's a convent? It's a fort. It's a place of power. It's a military base. But who was at the top of this order? The Grand Master, who stood where? Who stood where? Where did the Grand Master stand? The Grand Master stood at the top of the pyramid. What's at the top of the pyramid? The all-seeing eye. Novus Order Seclorum. New secular order, or New World Order. What was the New World Order about? I kept showing you as we went along. It's about the New World, where the Jews went, enslaved, grow sugarcane, to build America, to build the United States and all the other lands surrounding it. The New World Order. What is this place called, family? Was it called the United States of America? Was it just called the Americas? Or was it called the New World? Well, what order are we talking about? Because it is a New World Order. It's the order of the Templar Knights. It's the order of Roman Catholicism. It is the order of global governance, which is Esau wanting to rule. It's Esau putting himself in the place of Jacob as priests, as kings, to direct people back to God. It is the New World Order. The New World Order is a conspiracy theory which hypothesizes a secretly emerging totalitarian world government. The common theme in conspiracy theories about a New World Order is that a secretive power elite with a globalist agenda is conspiring to eventually rule the world through an authoritarian world government, which will replace sovereign nation states and an all-encompassing propaganda whose ideology hails the establishment of the New World Order as the culmination of history progress, which all your presidents have talked about. I don't think I've heard Trump talk about it, but everybody else. And if he did, just let me know, because I don't know if I heard him talk about it. Many influential historical and contemporary figures have therefore been alleged to be a part of a cabal that operates through many front organizations to orchestrate significant political and financial events, ranging from causing systemic crisis to pushing through controversial policies at both national and international levels as steps in an ongoing plot to achieve world domination. systemic crises like the Rona, shutting down borders. Because the Knight Templar sits where? At the top of the pyramid. The Grand Master of the Knights Templar sits where? At the top of the pyramid. The rest are members of the Templars, the Knights Templars, which are now called Freemasons. What do they want to do? They stole an identity. They stole our heritage. They stole a priesthood. And what else they want to do? Come on. Look, here's the deal. All this stuff is being revealed. So what that means is we must be in some stuff. Either the Most High come and save us, like I said, or we in some trouble, which, you know, I believe the Most High coming to save us. But when you start, once you know who the people are, you can see it all. The Pope asserts rights to colonize, convert, and enslave. Pope Alexander VI issues a papal bull or decree in Inter Caetera, in which he authorizes Spain and Portugal to colonize the Americas and its native peoples as subjects. The decree asserts the rights of Spain and Portugal to colonize, convert, and enslave. It also justifies the enslavement of Africans. Can I say Jews, black Jews? Thanks, daughter of Zion. I appreciate it. Out of our own soul largesse and certain knowledge, and out of the fullness of our apostolic power, by the authority of Almighty God conferred upon us in blessed Peter, and of the vicarship of Jesus Christ, which we hold on earth, do by tenor of these presents, should any of said islands have been found by your envoys and captains, give grant and assign to you and your heirs and successors, kings of Castile and Leon, forever together with all their dominions, cities, camps, places, and villages, in all rights, jurisdictions, and appurtenance, all islands and mainlands found and to be found, discovered and to be discovered, towards the west and south, by drawing and establishing a line from the Arctic pole, namely the north to the Antarctic pole. Thank you, Braca Israel, for the gift. Namely the south, no matter whether the said mainlands and islands are found and to be found in the direction of India, or towards any other quarter. The said line to be distant 100 leagues towards the west and south from any of the islands commonly known as the Azores and Cape Verde. What did they say Cape Verde? Was the center of the trade, slave trade, and the trade in sugar. With this proviso, however, that none of the islands and mainlands found and to be found, discovered and to be discovered beyond that said line towards the west and south, be in the actual possession of any Christian king or prince up to the birthday of our Lord Jesus Christ, just past, from which the present year 1493 begins. And we make appoint and depute you and your said heirs and successors, lords of them, with full and free power, authority, and jurisdiction of every kind. Pope Alexander VI in Terra Catera. So this is giving authority to conquer the Americas and to enslave Africans, aka Black Hebrew Israelites, which we've showed already. This is Esau. Esau wants his birthright back. This ain't no joke. Did the Knights Templars arrive in America before Columbus? The poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon, whose members are properly known as the Templars, was during the Middle Ages a powerful military order affiliated with the Catholic Church. Recognized in 1139 by the papal bull Omni Datum Optimum. The order was founded in 1119 and was active until 1312. when it was perpetually suppressed by Pope Clement V by the bull Vox in Excelso. Dedicated originally to defend the Christian pilgrims in the Holy Land, they soon accumulated impressive riches and great doses of power that earned them the hatred of many powerful people of the time. A mystery in history. One of the greatest historical mysteries in which they have been involved began in the year 1307, when a fleet composed of dozens of ships in which the Templars escaped the persecution of the French King Philip IV disappeared without a trace. Maria Lara Martinez, author of the book Enclaves Templarios, suggests that there is a possibility that the ships that went missing in 1307 actually ended up in America around 200 years before Christopher Columbus discovered the continent. Where's the evidence? To support her theory, the author explains, legend has it that when the Spanish conquistadors arrived in the Yucatan Peninsula, they heard that white men had already been there and had given their knowledge to the natives. Another hypothesis states that according to the testimony of monks who accompanied Columbus, the natives were not surprised to see the crosses of the warriors because they already knew them. Finally, it is also known that Maya worshiped Kukulkan, a white and bearded god. This is strange, since why would the Maya worship a god that was not physically similar to them? In fact, several authors have proposed that it is possible that Kukulkan and Quetzalcoatl was one of the Knights Templars. Thanks for the gift, Enzi. It has been argued that up until the Templars' persecution at the hands of King Philip IV in 1307, the Templars had a fully mature sailing fleet, so traveling long distances may not have been impossible for them. They had riches, which means they could have gathered the necessary resources to survive such a journey. We know that the Templars had beards and that the Maya and Aztecs did not. The Nahua people have it that Quetzalcoatl sailed to the New World from the east on a boat made of snakes. In her book, Lara Martinez delves into the study of the history of the Templars, explaining how the Order of the Temple was closely linked to the medieval history of the Iberian Peninsula. In fact, they took part in a great number of events that took place between the 13th and 14th centuries. Moreover, she explains what happened to those 2 centuries, both in the military, political, commercial, religious, and even artistic, is intimately linked to the order for their passage through the Iberian lands, has been recorded in numerous architectural remains and traditions, written and oral, that have survived to this day. The legacy of the Knights Templar still persists, and speaking of Templars remains synonymous with mysteries and mysticism. So what do we have today, family? What is the way that America is organized and the rest of the world, and mainly the Western world, right? Militarily, politically, commercially, religiously, even artistic. This is how they control the world. See, this is the real enemy. This is the real enemy, which is why you haven't heard much of them. They stayed in the background. But these are the ones who kicked off the slave trade to begin with. Thanks, Nerva, for the gift. These are the same people who started it all. And the war has continued, which is why the Western European powers are the ones who prosper today. This is why every single president, at least that I know of, and y'all can tell me if I'm wrong, has gone to visit the Pope. I'm not seeing one that hasn't. Because they must go bow the knee before the true hierarchy, which is Rome, which is Edom, which is the headquarters of Satan. Why do you think you got pedophilia and all this stuff going on in the Catholic churches? And that is so true about the dukes, because Esau was called a duke. How come these people are called dukes? Do you see the battle we're in? Like I say, pray for your boy Jacob. I'm telling you, the devil don't like to be out it. Let me see if I can make this larger. Okay, here we go. All right, so I wanted to read this to you. This is from Cutting Edge, but you can get it from the author Edward Waite, page 486 to 7. The New Encyclopedia of Freemasonry and of Cognate Instituted Mysteries. The Rice Literature and History of Volume 2 reprinted. In the high grades of Masonry, we hear of a secret intention to build yet another temple at Jerusalem. So a fake people, a fake land, a fake priesthood, and a fake temple. This is why they keep telling you about the Antichrist, and the Antichrist sitting in the temple claiming to be God, showing himself that he is God, right? They're usurping all of this, right? They're usurping the histories and the prophecies. I'm telling you, this thing is serious. I'm almost done, family. Malachi 1, verses 1 through 5. A prophecy, the word of the Lord to Israel through Malachi. Israel doubts God's love. I have loved you, says the Lord, but you ask, how have you loved us? Was not Esau Jacob's brother, declares the Lord? Yet I have loved Jacob, but Esau I've hated, and I've turned his hill country into a wasteland and left his inheritance to the desert jackals. Edom may say, though we have been crushed, we will rebuild the ruins. But this is what the Lord Almighty says, they may build, but I will demolish. They will be called the wicked land, a people always under the wrath of the Lord. You will see it with your own eyes and say, great is the Lord, even beyond the borders of Israel. So Edom says, though we have been crushed, we will rebuild the ruins. What do they want to build? Solomon's temple. Why? Because Solomon's temple is tied to Freemasonry and the magic and the mysteries of the Talmud and of thanks, Kelvin, brother. Thank you for the gift. And so they want to rebuild Solomon's temple. So one more thing, family, and this will be it. I'm getting a little tired anyway. All right. You all know this scripture. Second Ezra 6:9. For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. Who rules the world, family? Who has ruled the world for centuries? Was it not Rome? Did not Rome control and influence the European nations who ended up influencing the rest of the world? Do we not still see the influence of the Roman Empire, their military arm called the Knights Templars, which is the arm and the legs of the New World Order? They're called Freemasons. Freemasonry is in every country on the planet. There's one that the Ish people have. I'm not going to talk about it. You could go look at their order of Freemasonry. There's Freemasonry in Japan, China, everywhere. And anybody who's in authority are part of the raw dukedom. This is why the laws are set up against you, Israel, because they took your right to rule. This is why European Catholicism submits themselves to the Nicene Council. This is why the urban apologists, even though you show them tons and tons of evidence, thank you, Yasser, for the gift. This is why the urban apologists, when you show them tons and tons of evidence, ignore it. This is why urban apologists lie on Israelites, because they are submitted to Rome. Why does it matter to them that we think that we're Israel if all of our doctrine is the same? For the most part, I'm talking about Messianics. Why do they care that we call ourselves Israel. Because if you go back in history, they wanted you to forget who you were. They wanted you to stop honoring the Sabbath. They wanted you to stop doing Levitical thing. Priestly things. They didn't want you to celebrate your holidays. They wanted you to celebrate the Christian days, which is really the Catholic days and not the Christian days or festivals. Now, like I said, I'm not saying you're going to be made righteous by observing the feast days and all these things. I'm saying that is cultural tradition. And culturally, that's what we would do. And so culturally, that's what some of us do. Thanks, Victor, for the gift. So culturally, that's what some of us do. We honor the feast days. We honor the Sabbath day. Not that we think our righteousness comes from that, because our righteousness comes from Christ. But they don't want you to identify as Israel. Why? If you identify as Israel, then you are saying that we're not the same. If you identify as Israel, you're saying you're going to rule over me. If you identify as Israel, you're saying that God chose you over all the other nations. If you say you're Israel, then Yeshua came to you first. He came but for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. See, this is why you can't be Israel. You can't be Israel, because if you're Israel, then what is this thing we built? What are these churches that we built? Who we been paying tithes to? I thought we were following God. I didn't know the whole time we were under Rome. They speak a good word. They speak a good message. But in the end, they all wear the fish hats. Thank you, Hernball. But in the end, they wear fish hats. Even your bishops, your Baptist preachers, they wear fish hats. They wear the ecclesiastical robe of Rome. See, the problem is God is a king. And the king does whatsoever he will. And you can't vote on it. And if God said, I chose a people for myself. Thank you, Brother Zazek, for the gift. But I chose a people for myself, and there's nothing you can do about it. But Lord, why you chose them and not us? How come Esau couldn't get his birthright back? He said he made a mistake. He sold his birthright for some food. Some say porridge. Some say it's beans, whatever. He sold his birthright. And God didn't give it back to him because why? Because Jacob was the son of the promise. Why they hate you, Israel? Because you're the son of the promise. You're not democratic. But there's no more Jew, Greek, slave, free. We all the same. See, there's no difference. So you got persecuted because you were just a bad boy, Israel. But all the promises have been thrown away. It no longer belongs to you. It belongs to the church, which is democratic. Everybody's the same. But God says, by my sovereign will, I chose you. By my sovereign will, I made you my people. By my sovereign will, the others were as dung. But by my sovereign will, I wanted to include all the world into salvation. See, that was the mystery. That was the mystery that was hidden, that all could be saved through Christ. But he was going to use a particular people to do it. And guess what? He's still going to use those people to do it. He's still going to use those people to be a witness unto the nations. There's going to be a sign, which is a great regathering, which is going to be returned back to the land. And they're going to say, you know what? This Exodus is greater than the first. So now you a threat, Israel. You're a threat because you awake. You're a threat because now you know who you are, and you saying, I'm the people of God. You're a threat because we're not equal no more. You're a threat because you are part of the family of God, the original branch. You're a threat. You're a threat to the religious order. You're a threat to the political order. You're a threat to the financial order. You're a threat because now you want to go back to Africa, and now you want to take back your land. You want to take back your gold. You want to take back your silver. You want to take back your food, everything that's on the continent that they usurped from us. We want it back. But they say it belongs to us, which is why they created the New World Order, or the New World Order of the Templars, which is why they're going to build a new temple in that fake Jerusalem. A fake priesthood, a fake people, and a fake land. Peace is out. Peace and blessings, Israel. Your captivity is ending. Love y'all with the love of the Messiah. Make sure y'all pray for me, family, because I'm going to need it. I'm telling you. Love y'all.